And to discuss the recently celebrated CARICOM Day and the ongoing Conference of Caribbean Community Heads of Government, we now welcome Barbados' Ambassador to CARICOM, David Comissiiong. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Ambassador, what can you tell us about how CARICOM Day was marked this year?
Well, because of COVID-19, we are not really having physical events. So a lot of the celebration was virtual, social media. In Barbados, we did have a physical event. We did a very unique celebration. We had a CARICOM wax statue exhibition. And yes, but usually CARICOM Day centers around the country that hosts the Heads of Government Conference in July that coincides with CARICOM Day, and there are a number of activities, including races and so forth. In two of our member states, Guyana and Antigua, CARICOM Day is actually a public holiday, and it's marked with parades and a host of cultural events. But this year it was quite low-key because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Ambassador, you mentioned during the celebrations that the events of the past year and a half have shown just why the Caribbean people need CARICOM. Can you explain those statements?
COVID-19, our region was extremely hard hit by COVID-19. First of all, there was the health crisis, a life and death situation. And the CARICOM region has been given great kudos for how it has dealt with the COVID-19 health crisis. We were only able to deal with it so effectively because of our regional integration movement. Our Caribbean Public Health Agency, that's an institution of CARICOM. Our Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, another CARICOM institution, the Regional Security System, the University of the West Indies COVID-19 Task Force, and we can go on and on. So a lot of the strategizing, the working out of protocols, of responses to COVID was centered around CARICOM institutions that they did this work and assisted member states to put effective programs in place. And then there was the solidarity of CARICOM, the sharing of vaccines. So if one member state got vaccines, it shared the vaccines it got with other member states. So I think that we in the community were only able to do so well in confronting the health crisis of COVID-19 because of our integration movement. In addition, our economies, because they are tourism-dependent economies, have been extremely hard hit. And now more than ever, if we are to survive that economic crisis, we are going to need each other. We are going to need that solidarity. And then, of course, we had the volcano. We had the flooding in Guyana, Suriname. We have had the hurricane that has hit Barbados. And whenever there's a disaster, we can turn to our CARICOM institutions to help us deal with that disaster.
Ambassador, CARICOM Secretary General, Ambassador Irwin LaRocque, said on this Monday that as part of the 42nd Heads of Government Conference that the Caribbean community has much to celebrate. You mentioned there's also been a lot of struggles throughout the past year and a half, but what are the main achievements of this project for Caribbean integration, going beyond, for example, COVID-19 and more present challenges?
Yeah, well, COVID-19 is very recent, but I would go way back to the actual beginning of CARICOM. Before there was CARICOM, we had CARIFTA. CARIFTA was our regional integration mechanism, and that evolved into CARICOM in 1973. But when we made the decision to evolve CARIFTA into CARICOM, we also made a parallel decision before independent Caribbean community countries made a decision to break the diplomatic isolation of Cuba, the diplomatic isolation that had been foisted on Cuba by the United States of America and the Organization of American States. So in October 1972, we decided to evolve CARIFTA into CARICOM. And at that same conference in Chaguaramas, we made the decision that we were going to defy the United States of America and the OAS and recognize Cuba. So, and we decided then that CARICOM was going to have a coordinated foreign policy. And the recognition of Cuba was the first manifestation of that coordinated foreign policy. So, and we went on to deal with the European Union, for example, the European Economic Community, in a coordinated way, a coordinated foreign policy. Even when the crisis of Venezuela emerged in January of 2019, CARICOM had a very coordinated approach, the same to the United States, that the Caribbean must be a zone of peace. There must be no military intervention in Venezuela. So I would say the coordinated foreign policy has been one of the strengths. We have not always been successful. Sometimes big powers have managed to break our unity. I would also say that the functional cooperation, CARICOM does functional cooperation very, very well, whether it is public health, agricultural development, tourism development, the Caribbean Development Bank, education, the University of the West Indies, disaster management, you name it. We have 17 CARICOM institutions, functional cooperation institutions, and 8 associate institutions of functional cooperation. And then there's the freedom of movement regime. We have the CARICOM Skills National Regime, where citizens of the different member states are permitted to move across the region from territory to territory, to live and to work without needing work permits, to bring their parents with them, to bring their children, their spouses. And so I would say these are some of the achievements of CARICOM. And there's a psychological achievement. There's the psychological strength that comes from knowing that you are part of a community, that you're not facing this dangerous world alone, that you have comrades, you have brothers and sisters who are there to give you solidarity and support. So CARICOM is celebrating 48 years this year, but if we go back to CARIFTA, where we started, we would actually be celebrating 53 years. So that's a great achievement. So it's a long and very successful integration mechanism.
Ambassador, as you say, there are many achievements of CARICOM. COVID-19, the issue of vaccine, solidarity, foreign policy, etc. While there are some present challenges, such as natural disasters, for example, right now we have the tropical storm Elsa, which is actually hitting Cuba right now. These are key issues, of course, but turning to more long-standing objectives, you mentioned some of the achievements, the long-standing achievements. It was announced that the Jamaican government is to call on the Queen of the United Kingdom to provide reparations for slavery. CARICOM has a reparations commission that's dedicated to this purpose. What can you tell us about this struggle for reconciliation, truth and justice for the victims of slavery and their descendants?
Well, I'm surprised that Jamaica is petitioning the Queen. That I'm not sure about that strategy. We are pursuing a collective CARICOM reparations claim against not just Britain, but against all of the colonizing powers of Europe. And we have established a CARICOM reparations commission. We have established our reparations research institution, and we have established national governmental reparations committees or commissions in the various CARICOM member states. And basically what we are saying that these European powers, they colonized us, they enslaved us, they looted and plundered our people, they siphoned off the fruits of the labor of our people for generations. They used that wealth to develop Europe while underdeveloping our Caribbean countries. So they committed a crime. And we are saying to the European powers, look, you cannot simply commit a crime, damage a people, and walk away with your ill-gotten gains. So we are inviting you to come back to the scene of the crime and to play a role in helping to repair some of the damage that you did. So we are saying that because of this history, our countries, our people, we possess a fundamental and non-negotiable right to development. And these European powers are under a duty to facilitate that development. So for us, reparations is not about any individual money payment. Reparations is really about developmental programs, capital transfers that the European governments owe, the European institutions that were implicated in enslavement, the companies, the universities, the banks, the insurance companies, they owe as well. But we are going further. We are also saying that the entire international economic and political system that exists today has its roots in those centuries of enslavement and colonization. And as a result, our nations have been inserted into that system in a structurally exploitative and oppressive manner. And so we are also calling for a reparative restructuring of the currently existing international economic and political order. So reparations is a very powerful concept that we are going to use as an instrument for national development of the Caribbean community countries, but also as an instrument to be deployed to restructure the international economic and political order.
Ambassador David Comissiiong, representative of Barbados to the Caribbean community, thank you so much for joining us today, for offering your valuable insight into this crucial bloc for Caribbean integration and the ongoing struggles. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.